After I had designed Call of Cthulhu, took me almost exactly a year, I took a job at Chaosium to support myself and my tiny family while I was going to graduate school at UC Davis first and then Cal. I was Chaosium's typesetters because, hey, I could type. While I typed, I also did some editing. I kept doing more editing, I started doing designing, and eventually I realized that I really liked doing game stuff. And I didn't like the graduate school stuff so much, so my avocation of gaming became my vocation. I dropped out of graduate school. I went to work full-time for Chaosium. I joined them just after Call of Cthulhu was published. Incidentally, it was published in November on Friday the 13th, in the midst of an unnaturally strong storm. I'm not making this up. There was mysterious outages that kept happening at the printer, and the woman in charge of laying out the pages actually had a nervous breakdown. So yeah, spooky. And then from then on, anytime anyone had a hiccup with something Call of Cthulhu related, we all talked about the curse of Call of Cthulhu. So that was a thing. So Chaosium itself was a weird place. It was located in a tiny little house in Albany, California. The front yard lawn wasn't a lawn. It was a huge tract of weeds and ivy, originally poison ivy. So Chaosium actually brought in goats to eat the poison ivy, and they did. I had no idea goats could do that. They just ate the ivy. Thought it was great. The goats were kept downstairs in the house, in the basement. So later on, after the goats had left, we had to do some really heavy cleaning to get the goats' materials out. I guess it was worth it, though, to get rid of the poison ivy, because we had to walk through this long thing up to it. Now, Greg's actual house was 2 doors over. This was Berkeley in 1982, so there was a lot of dope smoking going on. I mean, I said we were in Albany. Albany's like right next to Berkeley. I didn't participate because I'm a good Mormon boy. But I do remember that we would always have business meetings in the warehouse. We'd go back into the warehouse and they'd pull out a big old hooter and they'd take a puff, hand it to the next guy around. It would make the rounds of all the Chaosium. No, they always were polite. They always handed it to me. I would never take a puff. I would hand it to the next guy. And so we had a lot of business meetings there. I mean, I guess I got affected by secondhand weed smoke, but I wasn't actually puffing it. And, you know, that weed may have been one reason that Chaosium never really managed to compete with the big companies despite its talent. So, kids, learn a lesson. Fun story about Greg Stafford. A few years before he died, he phoned me from California where he was living on a farm. And he said, guess what, Sandy? I said, what? I've given up smoking dope. I said, I guess that's great, Greg. And he said, I don't smoke anymore. I said, I guess that's great. And you know what he said? My mind is so clear. I've never been able to, I can go back into working. I can be a better designer, a better author. Everything's better. It's so clear. My mind is so good. And he literally said, I'm high on life. And I said, Greg, if I told you something like that back in the 80s when you were smoking dope, you would have laughed me to scorn as being a goody two-shoes. And he said, yeah, I know. But he did say, now, I'm not against people smoking dope, you understand, but I've learned it's not for me. So there you have it, right from Greg Stafford. Dope didn't help him as a designer. Anyway, here I am at Chaosium. I'm now a full-time game designer, developer, and editor, and all that stuff. Now, one kind of weird thing about this, and it's especially weird for designers, is that literally the only full-time job I have ever had in my life after school was being a game developer. I've never done anything else. I think this means I have a really odd life, but how would I know? It's the only life I've had. Maybe because of this, I've clung pretty hard to my family and wife. That might be my attempt to retain some element of normality. Anyway, Chaosium over time, maybe due to the secondhand smoke, wasn't prospering. Eventually, they let Steve Perrin, the senior designer, go. I was really flattered they kept me. They then laid off their artists, their layout guy, their warehouse guy. And so since there wasn't a warehouse guy, people like me had to personally collate and shrink wrap boxes in the warehouse with a heat gun. Now, if you were one of the lucky guys who bought the original Arkham Horror from 1987, I collated every single little token and card sheet in your box. Every dice, everything. That shrink wrap you tore off was personally sealed on by me. In fact, once I accidentally shrink wrapped a great big spider inside the shrink wrap, and I saw it afterwards. And I showed it to Charlie, and we said, should we re-shrink it? It's got a big spider in it. And he said, you know what? If it was any other game, we should, but Arkham Horror just added more creepiness. So I apologize if you are the person that got the spider box. Anyway, all this warehouse working I was doing on Arkham Horror, on Superworld, on everything was completely illegal. None of us had any warehouse insurance, and the laws of Oakland strictly forbade us to work there. But we did. So that was the good old days when I was a criminal mastermind. Anyway, you may think this sounds like Chaosium was starting to fall apart, and I guess really it was. It never quite died, though. And in fact, of late, it has resurged under new management. It's much improved, but that's a different story.